sickle cell, growing up, I just heard that some people were sick and it was a genotype issue. And originally, I didn't even think this genotype was something that you could predict till I was growing older, and then I saw that this thing is pure science and that there are checks you can do to avoid having this kind of situations. So I think what I know about sickle cell is that it's unfortunate, and I've also heard from a few people I know who are warriors abroad that it doesn't really exist abroad. Like in Europe, it's more like something that we have here. And I've learned that people just, or how do I say this? We just need to raise more and more awareness and more awareness so that people do not make temporary decisions that bring permanent pain to them. Well, like I said, we just need to raise awareness. Now, what breaks my heart and what frustrates me is that this is the 21st century, this is 2023. And this year, there are still going to be people that get married with careers. There are still going to be AS that are going to marry, or ASEC. And upon all the awareness we do, people are still making these mistakes. So if it was left to me, I'll make sure that institutions don't even allow them to get married. The church, the court, no, it's a big no. It's not a matter of Sunche Zasuyi, they said they would do it. It's a matter of no, because this is about safeguarding the future. This is about their joy eventually. We're trying to protect them. Also, I believe that even churches and places of worship, these are the primary places people get information from and believe. They should bring up this topic once in a while. Once in a while, we say once in a year, they should bring up these topics, because that is where the people are. Something that really needs to be done also is that we need to stop looking at our awareness only in the city and hit the grassroots. The villages where they don't even know that they should do genotype tests, because that's where more of this number is. Yes, there are numbers in the city, but there are even more numbers in rural communities. And the sad part is some of them don't even know their children are sick, that's till the children die. One thing about rural people is that they believe their authority. So they believe their pastors, they believe their chiefs, they believe their elders. If these people were to run awareness for them, I think it will help to dispel. And for those in the city, I believe that very soon, once a time will come when that thing will clear. Because the sad about enlightened people who actually believe in diabolical things, you can try to enlighten them and they won't hear. Well, I don't believe there's a time limit. I know people who have lived with sickle cell into their 60s. And there are also people that didn't make it to beyond their 20s. So I don't think there's a time limit. I believe that time and chance actually happen to all. And sickle cell, even though it's a sickness, is not beyond the scope of God's power. So it's all based on how many years God decides to give a man. There are proven methods in science that can help to go around this thing, but they're expensive. So if that's what you're hoping for, have the money to back it up. Where if you're hoping on a game of chance or anything else, I think it's a very foolish decision to make. Sometimes in life we have to delay ourselves temporary gratification for long-time rewards. But here's the thing about faith. Faith does not negate science. Faith does not negate science. It's the same thing with people who refuse to go to the hospital because they are feeling ill. And it's also like this case I read of some time ago, that there was a case that lingered it went all the way to the apex court. Why? Because a doctor did transfusion on the boy whose parents came from a religious sect that believed that blood transfusion should not be done. And I could only imagine how that boy grew up to be 21, because the case lasted 21 years, knowing, it lasted a number of years to go to 21, knowing that his parents were against what saved his life. So I don't believe that faith is against science. And I believe that God knows that these things are there. I also don't believe that there's that one, that is only one that you'll marry. God is not that wicked. So if you meet someone and you guys don't have, your genotypes do not agree, let it go. Yes, your faith will move mountains, but this particular mountain, don't carry yourself. I mean, we've read of people in the Bible who stepped out in faith, but God asked them to come out. They didn't just come out on their own. So don't do what God won't ask you to do. Unless you have a very clear directive from God, don't do it. Genotype is a first date question. In fact, I'll make it a little bit funny. My friend Phoebe Palm on Twitter, her Twitter bio, the first thing you see there is AS. So before you enter my DM, know that this is what is there. It's a very important conversation to have. Now, first date question, yes, even if it's not the first date, but I don't think you should proceed in a talking stage with somebody beyond 1 week and you've not spoken about genotype. That's where you now go to the risk of falling in love with somebody, and then you now have to start falling out of love because of genotype. I know people who have done that, and it's a special kind of pain. It's like a breakfast that was served to you by science. Well, does sickle cell make a person not dateable or marriable? Well, that's a tough question. Well, I'm just going to give the same answer I give to the answer of it. If you get an express command from God, then you can do it. Being in a relationship with someone who is sickle, or two parties who are sickle cell, it's a tough decision, and it's not a decision that you take lightly. So, like I said again, if you have an express command from God, yes, but if you don't play with fire. Well, I would say that I actually believe in that new warrior, because they are real warriors. They are fighting a war that they did not create. They are fighting a war that they had nothing to do with bringing it into being. And yet they fight. So I'll say that I salute you. I see you, I feel you, and I absolutely love you guys. Well, as someone who has lived with some kind of sickness, I actually have problems with my legs. I know how it feels when people put a tag on you. And when people say, the time people used to say, Gurugune, because you're not moving on your own feet. I know it's painful. I know it's painful. So I would say to people to try and be more sensitive. Personally, I don't ever call my friends who are sickle. I just call them warriors. That's a phrase that actually encourages them and gives them gusto and power. And then I'll say to them, do not always be on the defensive. Life is hard when you put yourself on the constant defensive against people and what they are saying. So I'll say to them to just sit calm. And even when people do things that are hurtful and don't understand the issue, just put it in mind that the people did not know better. But I'll say they are amazing people. And I don't even know how God made it, but they are the most creative people I've met. They are creative, they are geniuses, they are smart, they are full of life. In fact, to a large extent, they are very beautiful. Well, I'll say to people to be more sensitive, to not stigmatize, but to encourage one another and build each other up. And the Bible said, even as we see the day approaching. So these people deserve love, they deserve respect, and they deserve all of our support. They deserve our prayers. And I'll also put this out here. Donate blood. Go to the transfusion center. We have one in Plateau Hospital. Go there, donate blood. That blood could be somebody's saving grace. My genotype is AA, and I found out when I was going to secondary school because I had to run a test. Well, my name is Nenkinan Deshi, and I'm a community worker, serial volunteer. And my advice to people who are hoping to get married is, make sure you check your genotype. In fact, my advice is more to people who are about to enter dating relationships. Check your genotype. If it's not aligning, do something and live there. Getting married, get married the right way.